Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. Somehow it's already September, which means we're getting toward the end of the year, which is so crazy, but there's still so many upcoming book releases that I'm excited for, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, I'm not sure if these are all like new releases. Some of them might just be a new version of a book that's already been released. So like if it was just released in a hardcover, this might be like the paperback release, if that makes sense, but these are all still very new to me. I hadn't heard about any of these until very recently, so I still think they count. But yeah, so I'm going to go through them chronologically, so through each month, and then at the end I will have a section with holiday releases because I love holidays, if I haven't mentioned that already. So I'll make sure to put up the book cover and the release date on the screen since I don't have any physical copies, obviously, because they're not out yet. Okay, so our first September release is Jackpot by Nick Stone, and this follows Rico, who has to balance her senior year, working as a cashier, and also taking care of her younger brother. And one day she sells the jackpot winning lottery ticket, and she ends up having to go on this mission to track down the ticket holder because they haven't claimed their prize yet. This one just sounds really cool because she also goes on this journey with one of her classmates, and the synopsis kind of made it sound like it was like an opposites attract kind of thing, and I love stories like that, so that's why I was really interested in this one. Next we have The Infinite Noise by Lauren Shippen, and this follows Caleb, who is a 16-year-old running back who has been getting a lot of mood swings lately that really aren't so normal for him. And he ends up finding out that he is an atypical, which means he has these enhanced abilities. And his ability is extreme empathy, which means that he can feel everyone's emotions around him. And that includes his classmate Adam, whose emotions are all-consuming and also fit really well together with Caleb's own emotions. So Caleb's therapist kind of urges him to befriend Adam. As they grow closer together, Caleb learns a lot more about his ability and also himself. And this one is really interesting to me just because I really love books where a character has some kind of really cool ability like that, but it takes place in such a real world, like normal setting. Our next release is Finding Balance by Katie Garner, and this follows Jace, who had leukemia when he was 3, but he doesn't really remember it, and the only times when it crosses his mind are during his yearly checkup and also when he is at Camp Chemo for the summer. And this book also follows Mari, who has never been able to hide the fact that she's a cancer survivor because she has to start every day with going to grab her crutches. And she really loves going to Camp Chemo because it's the one place when she really feels like she belongs. In this book, Mari ends up transferring to Jace's school, and Jace can't ignore his attraction for her. The one problem is that nobody in Jace's life knows about his past with cancer. I really want to read this one because I have a close family member who's a cancer survivor, so any book relating to cancer where I think I'd be able to relate to a character's emotions is always something that I'm interested in. So that's it for our September releases. So now on to October. Our first one is The Code for Love and Heartbreak by Jillian Cantor. And this is actually a retelling of Jane Austen's Emma, which I haven't read, so I feel like this will be a really good way to kind of introduce me to such a classic story. This book follows Emma, who's a math genius, and George, who is the coding club co-president. And they're both given a task to brainstorm a new project together. So Emma comes up with this matchmaking app, but George doesn't really like that idea because he doesn't like feeling like he's meddling in people's lives. But all of these happy couples around school are proof that the app works, until these couples start to break up and people start falling for the wrong people, including Emma. Next, we have Everything I Thought I Knew by Shannon Takaoka, which I really don't know if that's how you say the last name, but I really tried, so hopefully it's close. But this follows Chloe, who had her whole life planned out until one day at cross-country practice, she collapses and she finds out that she needs a new heart. So 8 months later, she is in summer school and she has this urge to go surfing, which is weird for her because she's never wanted to do that before. And she's also having this recurring dream where she's on a motorcycle crashing in a tunnel. And she also has all these memories that aren't her own. And this just sounds really cool because I've heard that when people get organ transplants, they sometimes have tastes for food that they've never liked before or music that they've never liked before. So I thought this would be a really good story to kind of get in the mindset of somebody who has had a transplant and how it kind of changed them. And that's really interesting to me. Our next release is The Bad Boy and the Tomboy by Nicole Nwosu. Again, not sure if I'm saying the last name right, but hopefully. And this follows Macy, who has always been one of the guys and has always kept romance on the back burner until her longtime crush Cedric asks her out, and he ends up being everything she's always wanted in a boyfriend. Except for the fact that his cousin Sam keeps popping up all around Macy, and the tension between them starts to escalate, forcing Macy to decide where her loyalties lie. And I'm pretty sure that this actually was a book that started on Wattpad, so as somebody who reads Wattpad all the time, I absolutely love it. I'm really excited to see one of the books in a physical form. Our next October release is Poisoned by Jennifer Donnelly, and this is actually a retelling of Snow White. So it follows Sophie, who heads into this forest with the Queen's huntsman, who ends up pulling out a knife and carving out her heart. And Sophie feels like she honestly shouldn't have been surprised because she's always been rumored to be too kind and too foolish to be the future queen, and she's really started to believe all those poisonous words. But Sophie ends up surviving this because of the help of 7 strangers, and she realizes that she needs to find the courage to face this terrifying enemy. And I really want to read this one because I always love retellings of Disney stories, and also Snow White was always one of my favorites growing up, so I'm definitely excited to read this one. Next, we have Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella, and this follows Ava, who really believes that love should be found out in the real world and not through dating apps. So after a recent breakup, she finds herself at this writer's retreat in Italy. And at this retreat, she's not allowed to use her real name or any personal information. So this neighboring retreat also gets canceled, and so some of the guys end up coming to her retreat. And she bumps into one of them, and this whirlwind romance kind of blossoms from there. After the retreat ends, they both have to return to London, and they start to realize how different their lives really are. And this one just sounds really cute to me. I love stories that take place in other countries because I've always wanted to travel, but I haven't had the chance to yet. So this is kind of my version of traveling. Our next one is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, which follows Amelia and her twin Vittoria, who are witches, and they live in secret among humans because they want to avoid persecution. But one night, Vittoria misses dinner, so Amelia goes to search for her and soon finds her body completely desecrated. So she takes it upon herself to track down her sister's killer and to get revenge at any cost. And along the way, she ends up meeting Wrath, who is one of the wicked princes of hell, and he claims to be on her side, but she has been warned against him since childhood, so she's not really sure if she can trust him. And this book is actually a lot darker than the things I usually read, but I love things that have to do with witches and magic, and I also have really loved The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, and that's kind of what this reminds me of, because it's like a dark spin on witches and hell and all that stuff. So because I loved the show so much, I'm excited to see if I will like the book just as much. So now on to our November releases. Our first one is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer, and this follows Prudence, who one day she wakes up with this ability to cast instant karma on everybody around her. So she punishes mean gossips and vandals, but there's one person that she can't punish, and that is Quint, because every time she tries to, it seems to make her karma backfire. Prue ends up having to volunteer at this rescue center for some extra credit, and it ends up being the same place that Quint happens to work. And this just sounds like the cutest story. This is actually the first upcoming release that I saw, which kind of inspired me to do this video. It sounds super cute. I think something about instant karma is cool because sometimes I wish it happened like that in the real world. And also the fact that the rescue center is for local sea animals is just that extra adorable element that just kind of put it over the top for me. So I'm really excited to see how this one goes. Our next November release is Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. And this one follows Liv, whose only fond memory of her father is their shared love for Atlantis. So when he sends her postcards asking for her help with a documentary on his theories about Atlantis, she quickly jumps at the chance to go to him in Greece. When she gets to Greece, things really aren't as perfect as she was hoping for. Things are really awkward, and all of these questions keep popping up. But she's really determined to not let their past get in the way of their reconciliation. She kind of dives headfirst into Santorini's culture, but through all of that, she soon realizes that her father might have had some other reasons for inviting her to Greece other than what he told her. And I'm really excited about this one because I've already read Love and Luck and Love and Gelato, and both of those were super charming reads. And again, with the whole traveling theme, I think that Jenna Evans Welch just does a really great job at transporting you to a whole different place and really helping you see the culture and all these unique things about these different countries. So I'm really excited to basically travel to Greece. Next, we have Chasing Lucky by Jen Bennett, and this follows Josie and her mother as they return to their New England hometown to help run this family bookstore, because they have spent the last few years traveling from city to city. But Josie knows that it won't last forever because she has these big dreams of photography on the opposite coast. Josie bumps into her ex-best friend and the town bad boy, Lucky, who honestly wants nothing to do with her. But Josie ends up in some trouble and he quickly jumps to cover for her. So Josie is very determined to find out why he would be so quick to cover for her if he wanted nothing to do with her. So on her journey to figure this out, they also start to rediscover things about each other. It just sounds really cute to me. It also sounds kind of like a second chance romance, and I think books about that are always really fun to read. So I'm definitely excited for this one as well. Our next November release is A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. And this follows Lila, who had 3 big plans for her summer. And that included taking over her abuela's role as head baker, moving in with her best friend after graduation, and living happily ever after with her boyfriend. But when all of those plans fall through, her parents get really worried for her, and they decide to send her to England so that she can relax. When she gets to England, she ends up meeting Orion, who is a tea shop clerk, and he also promises to be her personal tour guide. So throughout her experience, she finds herself being charmed by England, but also Orion. Again, the traveling theme, I'm just a sucker for that, so that's really why this one sounded really interesting to me. Next, we have Those Who Pray by Jennifer Moffett. Again, hope I'm saying her last name right. I'm really bad with names in this video. But this follows Emily, whose college experience isn't what she expected because she still hasn't found where she belongs until the Kingdom ends up finding her. And the Kingdom is this exclusive campus group who ends up offering Emily everything she thought her college experience would be and more, especially because they offer her a trip to Italy. So when she arrives in Italy, Emily and the others who are there end up being stripped of their passports and money and any connection that they had to their lives back home. And they start to realize how manipulative and dangerous the Kingdom really is, especially when one of them ends up dead. This just sounds kind of dark and twisted, like a little darker than what I would usually be reading. But I don't know. As somebody who's in college currently, this just sounds kind of crazy, you know? Like you join the wrong club and all of a sudden this is happening to you. So this is definitely something that caught my eye very quickly, and I'm definitely interested to see what happens. That was our last November release, so now on to December. Our first one is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus. And this follows 3 cousins who don't really know each other, and they also have never met their grandmother because she disinherited their families before these cousins were even born. So they're all very surprised when they get letters from her asking them to come work at her resort for the summer. Their parents quickly decide to send them because they're hoping that this is the way to get back into her good graces. But when the cousins arrive on the island, they start to realize how dark and mysterious their family's past really is. Similar to the last book I talked about, this is also kind of like a book with some darker tones to it. So I don't know, I guess that's kind of the mood I'm in lately. Maybe because it's getting closer to Halloween. I'm not really sure, but I'm definitely excited to read this one as well. Our next one is Coming Up for Air by Nicole B. Tyndall, and this is about Hadley, and her mother recently had a cancer scare, so Hadley decided to stop taking risks and just focus on her photography and trying to get into her dream school. Then she meets Brayden, who is the star of the swim team, and the exact type of person that she tries to avoid. He ends up being the perfect sparring partner for her and really shows Hadley how to live again. So she ends up being really, really happy until her family gets some pretty devastating news, and at that same time, she realizes that Brayden has a dark secret that threatens everything they've kind of built together. Similar to the other cancer one I was talking about, again, anything that I feel like I can kind of relate to emotionally in the whole cancer world is something that draws my attention immediately, so I'm definitely really excited to give this one a shot. Our last December release is Every Other Weekend by Abigail Johnson, and this follows Adam, whose life fell apart after his oldest brother died. Because his mom is crying all the time, he can't stop fighting with his remaining brother, and his dad left when they all needed him the most. And our other main character is Jolene, who is a pawn in her parents' divorce war. But her future ends up seeming just a little brighter when she makes an unlikely friend in the boy who spends every other weekend in the same apartment building that she does. This one I'm just really excited to read because both of the main characters are dealing with family issues, and I'm really excited to kind of see how they help each other heal from all of the trauma that they've been through. Now we can move on to the holiday releases, and our first one is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. And this is about May, who is spending her last Christmas at her favorite Utah cabin, because this is the place her family's been going for years. So since this is the last Christmas there, she ends up having a meltdown as she's driving away. And she pleads with the universe to show her something that will make her happy. And the next thing she knows, she hears tires screeching, everything goes black, and she wakes up on an airplane bound for Utah. So she ends up living the same holiday over and over again, and she has to try to figure out how to break the time loop, and she might even find love along the way. And this kind of reminds me of a Hallmark movie that I've seen, so I'm definitely excited to see something like that in book form. And also I've heard really good things about Christina Lauren, so I'm definitely excited to be finally picking up one of her books. Next, we have The Last Halloween by Abby Howard, and this is actually a graphic novel, and it follows a 10-year-old named Mona who is stuck inside on Halloween when everybody else is out having fun. And all of a sudden, this giant monster appears in her living room, and she runs for her life. And when she gets outside, she realizes that trick-or-treating has been canceled because of a monster invasion. So she soon realizes that it's up to her and this other team of weirdos that she's with to help save the world and to save Halloween. And this one is really interesting to me because, as I think I've mentioned before, I haven't really gotten into the genre of graphic novels, but I really kind of want to start doing that, and because I love holidays so much, I really think that reading some holiday graphic novels would be a great way to kind of introduce me into that world. So that's why I'm really interested in this one. Our next holiday release is One Way or Another by Kara McDowell. And this follows Paige, who has this huge fear of making the wrong choice. So when she's given these 2 last-minute options for her Christmas vacation, the choice is very paralyzing to her. She ends up slipping in the grocery store, and her life splits into these 2 parallel paths with both of her options. One of them, she would end up in New York, which is a city that she's always wanted to travel to, and she would see herself falling in love for the city and also her tour guide. And her other path is heading to this romantic cabin in the mountains with Fitch, her best friend, until her anxiety kind of ruins everything. So before Paige gets her happy ending, she has to face her struggles with anxiety. And as somebody who also has some anxiety, I'm really interested to see how she comes face to face with that and how she kind of pushes through everything that she's dealing with. Next, we have The 12 Dates of Christmas by Jenny Bayless, and this follows Kate, who is satisfied with every aspect of her life except for the romance department. So her best friend ends up signing her up for this dating agency, promising to get her a boyfriend before Christmas, which just happens to only be 23 days away. So Kate ends up going on 12 dates in 23 days, which seems like a really good plan, except for the fact that each date is more of a disaster than the one before it. And she soon realizes that love shows up where you least expect it, and it could have been right in front of you the whole time. This one just sounds really cute. Again, I feel like I might have seen Hallmark movies a little similar to this, and I am a sucker for a good Hallmark movie, so I'm really excited to see another one in book form, and hopefully I enjoy them just as much as the movies. Another holiday release that I'm excited for is Christmas at the Island Hotel by Jenny Colgan. And this is about a new hotel that's opening on this remote island halfway between Scotland and Norway. And in the new hotel's impressive kitchen, 2 unlikely friends are thrown together. On one hand, we have Isla, who has been waitressing in the island's cafe for years and is really excited to work at the new fancy hotel. And on the other hand, we have Constantine, who he has been working his way up in the kitchen, but he's also secretly the son of a duke. And he's been sent there to learn what it means to work hard before he's able to get his inheritance. And this honestly just sounds really cool. It feels like it's combining a few things that I love, the whole traveling aspect, and also 2 unlikely friends, so people that might butt heads, opposites attracting. That's something that I always love in books. And also the fact that Constantine is the son of a duke is a really cool element to me, because I really have been trying to get into some books involving royalty and things like that, so I'm really, really excited for this one. Our last upcoming book release that I'm excited for is New Year's Kiss by Lee Matthews. And this is about Tess, who has to spend the week after Christmas at a lodge in Vermont with her stern grandmother. And she's really not happy about this, but she ends up bumping into Christopher in the lobby, and Tess decides to create a bucket list to kind of help get her out of her comfort zone. And Christopher is very happy to help her with it. Except that he has this secret that could mess everything up. I don't know, I've never actually read a book surrounding New Year's. I also really haven't seen many movies about it. I mean, except for High School Musical, the first one starts on New Year's. But other than that, this is a holiday I don't really see too much about, so I'm definitely excited to find something for New Year's. So those are all of the upcoming book releases that I'm very excited for. If there's any books that are going to be coming out soon that I didn't mention, please make sure to let me know down in the comments, because I'm always looking for new books to read. And also, October is coming up really soon, which means I will be releasing Holo Reads videos, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and also click the bell so you can get notifications for when I upload. I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.